Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the January edition of my monthly roundup. This is the video where I'm just going to kind of hopefully just run through a quick summary of everything that I have been doing in January that's not gardening. I categorize this into four categories, and that is what I have been watching, what I've been reading or listening to, what I have been making, and everything else. I'm just going to pause and try and adjust the lighting because I feel like I'm a little bit dark. Be right back. I'm hoping that this is a little bit better and you can see my face and I'm not just in shadow. This is quite a dark room, so getting the lighting right in here is a challenge. Anyway, welcome back, or welcome for the first time if this is the first of these videos of mine that you are watching. I hope that you've had a great month. January is a long month, so it can feel quite hard work. I spent most of this week convinced it was already February, if that makes you feel any better. But without further ado, I am going to talk to you about what I am watching. I am going to try and do this quickly because I'm recording it in my lunch break and I'm really hungry. So I'm hoping that if I can motivate myself to do it quickly, and then I can go and have my lunch. So without further ado, here's everything that I've been watching in January. Top of the list is SAS Rogue Heroes on iPlayer. It's amazing. It's so much fun. I think I, like a lot of people, dismissed completely the first series, thinking it was one of these SAS reality TV shows, but it's actually a dramatization of the origins of the SAS. There are two series on BBC iPlayer. It stars people you know. There's a guy from Game of Thrones in it. There's a guy from Sex Education in it. There's some other faces that you've seen around. Um, it's so fun. So yeah, and a lot of it is kind of real life, even though it is um, written a bit more like a caper or a heist kind of style. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. The second series has people are talking about it all over the place. So hopefully I'm not the first person to bring it to your attention. But yeah, so good if you like sort of fun historical capery type shows. I also watched I finished on ITVX, which is the ITV on demand service. I don't know if you can get this anywhere else, but a TV series called Vera. Vera is a long running detective show where the detective chief inspector is DCI Vera Stanworth. She is a middle aged woman from Northumberland solving murders and major crimes. It's been running a really long time and they come out as feature length episodes. I love this show, and if you saw me do a wrap up a couple of months ago where I talked about why I loved the TV show Shetland, it's got lots of like wide open landscapes and the sort of the environment is very much sort of a character within the setup of the nature of the crimes and things like that. I didn't realise that Vera and Shetland are written by the same author. I can't remember who the author is, so I'll try and put it either in the notes or in a bubble on the screen. Um, but yeah, very similar. Great big sort of wide open northern landscapes in the UK, big moorlands or moody seascapes, and lots of people getting up to nefarious things and cantankerous DCI solving the problems with a fabulous supporting cast. So that series came to an end. I think there were two or three episodes right at the start of January, and I happened to be watching all of the past series on catch up and kind of caught up with the new episodes as they were released. So sad for that to come to an end. Um, and now I'm looking for my next epic, long running police crime drama thing with hundreds of episodes that I can just have on, never ending, on demand to kind of keep me entertained when I'm doing other things. So if you have any of those recommendations, please put them below. Um, I did watch a whole film. I don't watch a lot of films. I, like perhaps many others, have really struggled to watch movies since the pandemic. Um, there's just been something about consuming films at home whilst looking on my phone and social media. The number of like serialized dramas that are available sort of means that I can, most TV I don't actually sit down and watch, it's just on in the background and I'm sort of absorbing it whilst doing something else. And films, that doesn't really work. But I do have Disney, and I did sit down and watch one Friday evening the new Alien movie, Alien Romulus. I thought it was actually pretty good. I don't think that it, I think it would be really difficult to properly capture the true emotional impact of Alien or Aliens. Alien being a slow running psychological drama or a sort of psychological thriller, and Aliens being quite a like jump scare gore fest horror movie type style. They were pretty genre defining films and have sort of set the scene for lots of other things. So it's really difficult to get that first time experience from anything else that follows that suit. And definitely, there's nothing sort of new or especially different about Alien Romulus. Over the summer, when I was not very well, and I had a lot of time off work, I knew the Romulus movie was coming, so I set myself the task of going back and rewatching all of the Alien movies in preparation, which I did apart from the Alien Predator movies. I was like, I don't need to go into that space, but all of the Alien movies and Prometheus as well. So I was quite well set up to then sit down and watch Romulus. It's much more of that action space action movie style. The cast are very good. They all do really, really well. Like it's a good, solid movie, but it's not a standout movie because of its heritage. And there are so many, like the first three Alien movies, particularly, are really spectacular films. But it is a good, solid addition to that franchise. And I believe there is a TV series, Alien Earth, is coming out, which is going to take that franchise in a new direction. So yeah, I do recommend it, which is why I am bringing it to tell you about here. And then finally, I have a 7-day free trial for Paramount Plus, and I have spent all of it catching up on Yellowstone. Um, Yellowstone is a family serial drama. There are 5 series. I am halfway through series 4 at the moment. Not bad considering I'm on day 5 of 7 of the free trial. I have dedicated myself to making sure that I have watched all of Yellowstone before this 7-day free trial expires. So it's if you are not aware of it, long running ish 5 series is quite long, I think. Family serial drama set in Montana, based around the lives of a cattle ranching family and major landowners in the region. Montana is massive. I'm not entirely certain which bit of it they're in. I think more south. Um, but I'm not entirely certain. And yeah, it's a very sort of big dynasty. There's a sort of political intrigue, occasional sort of merges into organized crime, occasional merges into sort of corporate legal battles. There's a lot going on. And it remains kind of sensible. Some of these kinds of things, they just start to get like Sons of Anarchy just got into a place where it was just nonsense for quite a while. But this sort of has maintained an authenticity. And I really like there's a couple of elements that I really like. The interplay between two of the lead characters in there, which is the daughter Beth and the ranch foreman Rip, their romantic relationship that develops on sort of a slow burn over the series. It's just beautiful. It's really nicely done. They're they're both very different people in their day-to-day life, but the moments that they have just the two of them, you sort of see this potential for people to be something other than what you think they are, and I really enjoy that. that observation. And the other thing that I think keeps a real heart about it is the relationships and the day-to-day lives of the ranch hands who do play like the Wranglers have their own little sagas going on alongside all like the massive family drama. And it's just really fun watching their camaraderie and their banter and sort of what they get up to behind the scenes of the family drama. And it's really funny, like proper laugh out loud moments. So yeah, so I am impressed how this series has managed to sustain itself, not become farcical and not just become a parody of itself, which happens in so many other places. And I'm really looking forward to finishing off the series. And I just hope I've got enough time before my 7-day free trial expires. So that's everything that I have been watching. I am on the lookout for some new shows. So if you have some recommendations, do please put them in the comments below. If you haven't seen any of these before, my go-to TV shows are generally some form of crime drama. And because I have the TV on but I don't watch it, I'm very happy with light entertainment versions of that. There's a couple of things coming up that I'm looking forward to. My Disney subscription is due to expire. I don't know if I'm going to renew it, but if I do, I would like to watch Alien Earth. There is a new series of Reacher, Jack Reacher. Can't remember exactly what it's called on Amazon Prime coming up. And I've bookmarked some shows on BBC iPlayer to watch, one of which is Miss Austen, which is a period drama about the life of Jane Austen, but it stars Keely Hawes and Rose. Mind blank. I'll again put a bubble comment somewhere. Um, but she was also in Game of Thrones and has been in The Good Wife, Good Lawyer, that thing. So good actors, and that's encouraging. So I'm really looking forward to watching that. And there's a couple of other things, but I have forgotten what they are, and I'm supposed to be recording this really quickly, so I'm going to move on. And next up, I'm going to talk to you about what I have been reading and listening to. I have only been reading one book this whole month, and it is book one of the Night Dawn trilogy by Peter F. Hamilton. The first installment is The Reality Dysfunction. I have brought you the book to show you. This is a thick book. There's very small writing in this book. It's epic. There are long chapters. I'm not even halfway through. Not quite anyway. But I'm really loving it. It is a big science fiction space opera from the early 90s. So there are three books in the trilogy. Duh, did I even need to say that? Um, I was lent it by a friend who recommended it to me. They lent me their copy, but because it was an older book, I was starting to worry about it getting battered. So I happened to find all three, or a copy of each of the trilogy. I, I don't know why I'm struggling with this. Um, on eBay. So I now have. So I broke my own rule and bought a book. Um, so I now have the whole trilogy to read. This I'm probably still going to be reading this in February. Yeah, that is consumed me. If you like science fiction, I think there is a bit of difference between liking science fiction and being into science fiction enough that you are prepared to invest in massive space operas. These are sort of, trans-dimensional, trans universe kind of things. They are very sciencey science fiction, so they sort of justify how people can live on a self-sustaining spaceport that and that doesn't sort of rely on resources coming elsewhere. It actually looks after itself. Like it goes into the science of some of that. There are different species of terrestrial and non-terrestrial life forms. There's a backstory of like how human evolution has gotten to this point where planets are being terraformed, people are living in space, like faster than light travel it has come to be. So it's very, very, like, the world building is intense. It is not for everyone. um it's a commitment. It took me, it's been a long time since I've read a book like this, and it took me ages to sort of just get into how heavy the language is, and the sort of, how uh there's lots of big words in science. Essentially, it takes a bit of getting into. Like, if you're going to suddenly pick up Shakespeare, you have to kind of reorientate yourself to the way that the language and the style of writing. Um, but it's so good so far. Even just slightly less than halfway through book one, and I'm completely hooked. So yeah, so definitely going to be investing in completing that at some point. But that has left a lot of space. So I've actually have quite a few audiobooks that I've been listening to on the side. That has been 100% of my reading time, but I've had more listening time because I'm only reading one thing. Um, the first one notable mention is to, if you are into sci-fi, I'm sure, and Audible, I'm sure you have heard of the Bobiverse before, and I hadn't realised that a fifth book in the Bobiverse has been released. I have forgotten what it's called. I'm going to see if I can find that real quick, and if not, then I am going to put it somewhere, but it's called Not Till We Are Lost. And it is a really, really fantastic continuation of of a series that, again, manages to maintain its own authenticity and realism, even in the world that it builds. It hasn't, like, the quality of writing, the quality of the story, my interest in it hasn't waned at all as the series has gone on. This book is just as good as any of the previous books. The one that I didn't get on with so well was the fourth one. Actually, I struggled a little bit with that when I was starting to go, going into places that I'm not so interested in. But it sort of brought it back for this fifth installment, and yeah, it's just funny. It's I think some of the things that made this fifth book more successful was it brought the cast of characters back down to a core few from the early books. One of the things about the Bobs, so the Bobs, so if you don't know the Bobiverse, where have you been? Um, but Bob is a tech millionaire from today, Silicon Valley, sells his company for millions of dollars, if not billions, and immediately gets hit by a car and dies. But he signed himself up. This is not spoilers. This happens in the first 2 minutes of the story. He had signed his body to be cryogenically preserved in the hope that in a future he can be resurrected, and he is resurrected several hundred years in the future and becomes the personality of a von Neumann probe sent out into the universe to explore space and support human space travel to find new worlds for colonization. I think that's a fairly good summary. But one of the characteristics of a von Neumann probe is self-replication. So once he kind of finds his feet in his new world, he has a uh, pre-programmed imperative to replicate. So you get clones of Bob. They all take on their own personality and all come and sort of evolve as components of the original Bob. Um, but yeah, so he creates a civilization based on copies of Bob. So it's, yeah, it's good. It's very wry. It's very sort of self-aware. It's funny. It's good. If you like sci-fi, I would recommend all the Bobs. But I definitely probably recommend starting with the first one for the world to make sense. So yeah, really delighted to have a Bob book five. Looking forward, hopefully, to a Bob book six. The other Audible that I listened to was a recommendation from a friend in book club, and it's called The Lie Tree. And it is a very, like, on the surface, it's just a very easy listen. It's based around a young woman in the late 19th century. Um, around the time that Darwin is publishing The Origin of Species, and the scientific community is all of a fury because up until that point, the idea that God created everything was the predominant scientific reason for any of us being here. So it put a cat amongst the pigeons. This young woman lives in a scientific household, and her father has made some even more controversial claims that have been debunked in the scientific community, and they kind of end up in exile somewhere in the Channel Islands. Um, and it goes on for her to have this adventure. So it kind of is like a modern. There's an element to this that's sort of a little bit of a modern Railway Children or Five Children and It kind of. It sort of feels like it's trying to sit in that space, but it layers it with a very modern perspective on the challenges around female emancipation at the time. So, female roles in society not having the same equality as we are used to, and the impact and the challenges that that has on day to day life of women living at the time. And I found that the two of those things together didn't necessarily work super well. It wasn't so convincing. Um, but it was a good, like, it was a good story. When I say that something is good, I genuinely mean that it's good. It's not outstanding. I'm not effusing about it. But it is worth listening to. It was an interesting story. Interesting things happened. It was an interesting perspective. It was a little bit hard. Like, I find it emotionally quite hard work in some places. Um, it was a bit darker than perhaps the children's stories that I'm referencing to, which are ultimately um, children's stories, so they're quite hopeful and positive even when bad things happen. It gets to a good place, I think, in the end. I don't think that's a spoiler. They figure it out, but it doesn't necessarily go the way you think it is. So yeah, so if you like historical dramas, again, there's something a bit sciencey about it. There's a lot of very epic sea battered landscapes on an island in the middle of the Channel Islands where it's very remote, if that's your thing. If you like easier easy stories. I said it's not the easiest, but it's on the easier end of entertainment, then that might be something that you're interested in. I feel like I haven't sold that very well, but I am here to give you a recommendation, so I am suggesting that might be something you're interested in. Um, yeah, hope you like it. If you're familiar with it or you do listen to it, come back and drop me a comment and let me know what you think and see if my description makes sense. I'd be really interested to know what you think. My last Audible and my last reading listening entry for this journal is The Seaborn Cycle, also on Audible. Probably that was obvious. It's written by Michael Livingston and it is part of the Audible Unlimited catalogue. So I haven't quite finished the third one, but I have listened to three back to back. I'm in like the last hour or so of the three that are available. I don't know whether or not there's going to be a fourth. At the moment, there's only three. It is a really interesting um, set of stories. On the surface, it has a lot of everything that you want from it. It's broadly a fantasy. There are pirates, there is magic, there's transdimensional travel, and there's dragons. So what is not to love about it? And if you take it as just a sort of a rip roaring yarn, you can have a lot of fun with it. If you are somebody like me who scratches the surface and thinks a little deeper, even if they don't want to all the time, um, it's it doesn't come without challenges. Um, One of the things that's actually really interesting about it is that the opening entry, the first book in the cycle, is based predominantly in a matriarchal society, which is quite interesting. The only thing I don't like about that is that actually the version of the matriarchy that this world inhabits is just a complete role reversal of what we identify as our patriarchy in real life. So it is a world where women are dominant and men are inferior and don't have opportunities or rights actually pretty much to anything in their world. Um, which I just think is a little bit of a lost opportunity. It's not the most imaginative way to do it. There's real life examples of much broader, more open matriarchal societies that exist as within the world that we inhabit in real life. So to have taken that approach was a little bit disappointing, lazy. I don't know. The other within that there are lesbian and bisexual relationships, which is good. But I think the world and how the it's not by any measure a sort of an LGBTQ plus um, pro literature. I'd say it sort of has these elements to it, but they're not. Where they're quite two-dimensional, and I would go so far as to say they're not very well researched, if researched at all. They're not super convincing. So there are lesbian relationships, there are bisexual relationships. All gender is binary. You are male or female. There is no space for anything in between within this world or within just the author's imagination. I'm not quite sure. There is a an alternative civilization. So it's set in a world where there are some isolated communities, and because of trans-dimensional dragon magic, they end up having to and cyborgs. Actually, there's a lot going on. They are sort of forced to interact with each other. So you have this seafaring matriarchal society, and you have the airborne who are sort of running around in uh, air balloon type things. I can't remember the name of them, but I will. It'll probably be apparent from the picture I insert. Um, Airships, and they come from a kingdom patriarchal society. Uh, their society only has or only appears to have heterosexual relationships. So there's no gay love going on in this book at all, which is quite interesting considering other combinations seem to be okay. So it's whilst it on the surface it sort of offers some inclusion around sexual identity, I wouldn't say it is very pro LGBTQ plus rights or lifestyles. Um, the So far the second book in the cycle has been my favorite. It is much more getting on with the story, and again there's like it's a big adventure story. There's lots of adventure going on, there's lots of like peril, and there's lots of like challenges to overcome. Like it's a really good adventure story, and it doesn't try to go too much into the world building. For me, it's when it goes into the world building that the cracks start to form, because everything does feel very just surface deep. Um, but on top of that, so if you're willing to put that aside, there's a good story there, and a little bit of untapped potential is probably the worst I can say about it. That is the Seaborn cycle. Three books so far, possibly more. I won't know until I finish the third one. um, but yeah, so that is everything that I have been reading and listening to in January. In terms of what I have been making, I have, do I start with food or do I start with craft? I'm suddenly a little bit not sure. If I start with food, I have three recipes of note this month. Firstly, I made a whole orange cake. I have made a whole orange cake before. I've talked to you about it before. But I made a little change to this one, and that was to put a gingerbread glaze over the top of it, and it was really good. If you are new to my channel, um, you may not be aware that I am slowly renovating my house, and consequently, I do not have a full kitchen. So to bake anything is quite a challenge. My oven options are a small sort of combination microwave oven or the air fryer. So baking isn't the easiest. but I do enjoy baking and I like eating cake. So I try to have a bake every month. This month I had oranges to use up. So I boiled the whole oranges in the pressure cooker and then whizzed them up in the food processor and then added them into just a basic yogurt cake recipe um, for flavor. And yeah, really, really good. So I highly recommend that. I also made, I think I spoke about this last time. I have a monthly veg box delivery from a company called Riverford, who are an organic and local supporter of local farms in the UK. Um, they deliver every month. And so I challenge myself every month to be able to do new and exciting things with the produce that's included in my veg box. Because it's winter, most of my veg is parsnips, celeriac, and kale. Um, so I made a couple of repeat things from last month that I won't talk to you about, but I made a celeriac hash. This was a recipe from BBC Good Food. It was the original recipe was for ham hock. I didn't have any, so I used a tin of corned beef. That's not for everyone. But as I've been watching Yellowstone and it's all about cowboys and hash and tins of corned beef sort of feels like cowboy food, this felt like life imitating art, and I was very excited about it. Normally, I would have. There's a whole different ways that you can make hash. I made this one quite authentic to the recipe. So it had onions, it had grated celeriac. I didn't have any whole grain mustard, but I used Dijon. Um, I put some kale in it, which was also part of the recipe. So I didn't have ham hock, so I used a tin of corned beef and added some fried eggs afterwards, and it was absolutely, absolutely just delicious. I had it for breakfast yesterday, I think. I will be making it again. I think that's definitely next time I have celeriacs and I don't know what to do with them. That is definitely going to be a thing. It was, yeah, any kind of corned beef hash, I think, is supposed to just be a sort of a throw it together, don't think too much about it kind of a meal. So this one did take a bit more effort, um, but it was well worth it. And a one pan dinner, which never goes unwelcome. Um, did I have another recipe? Oh yeah, I made lemon yogurt soup, which sounds weird, but was really nice. It was very tangy. Um, Very just really flavorful. Had lots of veggies and things in it as well. Um, very different from any kind of soup that I have ever made before, and wouldn't have been a method of making soup that I would ever have considered. So a friend of mine recommended it through Instagram, and I used an Instagram post, somebody's Instagram reel, as the insp- inspiration, and yeah, it was really nice. So they were my three top recipes that I made this month to use up my Riverford order. In addition to that, I've obviously been continuing working with my crafts, and I have this one. This is my upstairs knitting. But when I went to grab my book, I thought I would get this one. I don't do a lot of this, so it has grown a little bit. This will eventually be a why can't I remember any of the words today? This will be like an infinity scarf or a snood type scarf. So it's just going to go round and round and round, and then until I run out of yarn, and then I will join the ends together. Um, yeah, so that's probably at this point going to be ready for next winter if I'm lucky, based on my usual knitting patterns. More likely the winter afterwards. Um, the example for that is I've just dropped it out of the basket. It's this wrap, my rainbow wrap, which I have been knitting since 2021, but I am so close to done now. That's the back. So it's just massive. Goes all the way through the rainbow. I'm knitting it in linen stitch on 4mm needles. This was a subscription yarn club just so long ago. But I only have this much yarn left. I'm pretty sure I have just started the last colour change, um, which means I've probably got about 6 rows left, 5 maybe, before I need to think about casting off. So that is so, so close to done. I am hoping that I can show that to you as a finished object in February. And that is everything I've been making. That brings us to all of the other things that I have been doing. And because January is quite a long month, I've been doing quite a lot of things. I did have book club. It's my real life book club that I go to every month. I think it's probably the thing I look forward to most in the month. Um, our book club runs a little bit differently from others. We don't all read the same book. We just come together on a monthly basis to talk about what it is that we have been reading or listening to. There's a lot of people who come to that prefer to listen, will listen exclusively to audiobooks or prefer podcasts. So everybody just brings their recommendations. It's a little bit, I guess, the inspiration for me having started these videos to augment my gardening content, especially through the winter months when not much gardening was happening. Um, so I've sort of taken that same format and brought it into this space. So yeah, so I really love the book club. I started painting my spare room. Um, I should be recording a video, or I have been recording a video on that, but I haven't edited the footage yet, so I don't know what that video is, when that video is going to come out, or what sort of format it's going to take. But that will go on my renovation series. I need to get that room set up and ready as a spare room, and I have a deadline for that, which is the end of February. I got 85%, 90% through the painting on my week off. I've since had a cold, and so I've just not gone back and finished it off. I'm away next week, so yeah, that is becoming a future problem to finish. But hopefully, I will finish it. Have a nice video prepared to share with you the experience of doing it, and at the end I'll have a nice reveal of my new beautiful spare room. The furniture is being delivered on the 17th of Feb. That's my deadline. I started Pilates. If you've seen some of my vlogs before, you will know that I do quite a lot of yoga. I start yoga teacher training next month. Is it next beginning of March? I start yoga teacher training. Um, but I decided that I was going to do a little bit of Pilates to help with some core strength and alignment, really alongside all the extra yoga that I'm going to be doing as part of my yoga teacher training. And it's a real life in person class. I leave the house and go into town once a week and have Pilates class with other people. It's quite a different way of doing things for me. Um, Quite introverted, spend a lot of time in my house, try and find reasons not to go out. But yeah, signed up to Pilates, and I've been really enjoying it. I've had 3 or 4 classes so far, and I really like it. They are beginners classes, so I don't always feel like I've had like an epic workout, but I do always feel really good afterwards. It's quite a strange experience. But yeah, I think that was all I have to say about Pilates. I did start an initiative for myself in January, a little bit to try and get over January blues, if you will. Um, but I've started what I'm calling Dress Up Friday. I work from home, so essentially every day is Casual Friday. But I found that what for years and years and years, essentially, I live in dog walking clothes. It's not very fun. It doesn't necessarily make me feel good. So, in order to sort of just have something to look forward to and a bit of an excuse to do something different on the weekly timetable, that if I do Dress Up Friday, it's going to be one day a week where I look at the clothes that I have in my wardrobe and I put together a nice outfit that is going to make me feel good. and something that if I go to the pub on Friday night, I can wear, and I'm not just turning up in saggy jogging bottoms and or leggings or something, and I can sort of, feel presentable. So that's been really fun. I've been posting those summaries and sort of what it is that I'm doing on my Instagram. My Instagram isn't a public Instagram, so that's just something that I share with friends. Um, but I wanted to let you know about Dress Up Friday because some of my friends have commented back to me that they really enjoy watching what I'm doing, but also that it's given them a little bit of inspiration to do something similar. And I just think that we live in a world now where keeping things for best doesn't make sense. And so finding different reasons to dress up is just can just be fun, and we don't need a wedding or a party or something going on to do it. We can just do it because it makes us feel nice, and that is the objective. So yeah, if I well, the worst thing about Dress Up Friday, I would say that I will share some pop up some pictures, but I take the worst photos. Genuinely, I take the worst photos, and I don't know that I have any photos that I'm willing to share publicly. So yes, please feel free to take that idea and own it for yourselves if you wish, but I can't promise that I'm going to share more openly anything about what it is that I'm doing with that idea for myself. Thank you so much for your time today and for coming to watch this video. I hope it's not too long. It's probably a little bit longer than I really hoped for. I am going to go and have some lunch now because I'm really hungry, and I will see you in the next video, which should be a gardening video if that's more of your jam. In the meantime, please do all of the things that YouTube likes, which is like, comment, and subscribe. I really love interacting with your comments, particularly. So please let me know if there's anything that I have shared with you today that you're going to take as a recommendation, or any recommendations that you have for me, or just share with me a little bit about what it is that you've been up to this week. I really would look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I shall say farewell. Bye.